everyone. Good evening for joining in. We can start right now. But before we start, a couple of things I want to say. Firstly, this session is a lot about analytics and tech and things like that. But it's actually more important for us to first thank the people behind it. Without our delivery partners, we are actually not able to do anything that we could have done. Okay. Second thing is, if you have any questions, we have some time at the end of the session for Q&A. Please type in through the chat and I will somebody is tracking the questions and we will take them later on. Okay. Now getting to the topic itself. One of the common questions we have Swiggy customers asking us is, where is my order? And they're very angry when their order gets late or something untoward happens. Okay, so what we want to do at this point of time is use this presentation to talk a little bit about some of the technology behind it, some of the analytics, some of the data science behind it, so that you understand the complexities of the world we live in. And before we start, I want to tell you that we understand why you're angry when your food is not on time. Science behind it is that your blood glucose levels decrease. Basically, that affects concentration and self-discipline. Your stress hormones are released also. Basically, that makes you fight. And then there are genes for apparently between anger and hunger, which are similar, and they are activated, and you get very angry. So we want to make sure you're never hungry or angry. So we're obsessed about people who are obsessed about food. But the real world is actually not perfect. In a perfect world, what would happen is customers would have a really consistent ordering behavior. For example, the orders at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock would all be the same from certain customers. They will not change their behavior up and down through various times. Okay, and what you buy is predictable. Where you buy from is also predictable. That's a perfect thing from a customer perspective. On the restaurant side, they take exactly X amount of time to prepare. We know when they're open and when they're closed. When certain dishes are unavailable, we are able to predict them properly. And in an operating environment where things like traffic are predictable. So that is a perfect world. As I have described the perfect world, I'm sure you've understood that it's not perfect at all. So let's talk about a few things which makes it very difficult for us. First of the lot is just the spread of our orders. So if you look at how our orders are structured, a huge bunch of our orders comes at dinner time. So there's a huge peak there for dinner, and there's a smaller peak around lunchtime that we have. So it's a twin peak system, and if any of you have done shift estimations and things like that, a twin peak system is very difficult to create a shift for, because if you have too many people, then they're unused in this period of time when there's not that many orders. If you have too few people, then the orders you cannot fulfill those orders. So that's one constraint we have. Second one is, if you just benchmark the number of orders by days of the week, you can actually see there's a big spike that we have on Sundays and Saturdays compared to what we have on a Monday. Let's say you had 100 orders on Monday. Sunday, you'd probably have a 155, 160 kind of orders. So even across days, there's a huge variation. And especially when you have things like New Year's Eve, festival, things like that, there's a big spikes that we get. Our business is spiky both within a day as well as across the week and so on and so forth. And I'm sure anyone who's lived in Bangalore will understand this. Traffic is really unpredictable. The same 2 kilometers can be done in, let's say, 5 minutes on one day and 2 hours on another day. Really unpredictable behavior. So we don't know how long somebody is going to take to actually travel a certain distance. And there are also things like rain, for example, which change the traffic behavior and makes it difficult for us to operate. And it's not just the external world. Even inside the kitchen, there's a lot of stuff happening. And let's say there isn't enough staff, or they have received an unexpectedly high number of orders. The restaurants also kind of struggle with their orders. Okay, so that's the stress on the restaurant side as well. That's what makes it a not so optimal, not so optimal business. Okay. That leads us to two things that we need to balance at any point of time. So one of which is called utilization, which is if you have a certain number of drivers delivering orders, at how busy are they, which is how much time do they spend in order related activity and how much time do they spend in non-order related activity. Okay, that's one. And the second one is something we call stress. Okay, stress is pretty much number of orders divided by number of available drivers. Okay, so typically in the nights, especially on Sunday nights, we have a lot more orders than there are drivers. So which means stress is going more than one, which is a big impact to the system. And at any point of time, we are trying to balance these two. For example, you can have a lot of drivers, which means that you'll never be under stress because you'll always be able to deliver the orders. But on the other hand, too many drivers will keep the utilization very low. And if the utilization is very low, the cost of delivery for every order becomes very high. On the other hand, you can have a lower number of drivers, which keeps the utilization very high. But then we hit stress, and when we hit stress, we may not be able to deliver the orders, and then our customers become very unhappy. So that's the two things that we need to balance. And anything we do has to work on three different things at every point of time. At every point of time, we need to be able to deliver at low cost, very high speed, and very high choice. At any point of time, if even one of these is not available, then it's not a good delivery. Okay, for example, I can say I will only show restaurants within 500 meters of your house. So which means my cost will be very less because it's close by. My speed will be very less because it's again close by. But then you may not have hundreds of restaurants to choose from because it's a very small radius. And because of choice, you may decide not to buy from Swiggy. So at any point of time, as part of our operations, we have to balance between all the three, and all the three have to be at a reasonably good level for us to succeed. Okay. So with that constraints explained, I will jump into what we're trying to do here, how we do it. Okay. One main principle that we have, actually, before we go on, I have a person called Aditya who's tracking Q&As. I will not pause for questions while I'm speaking. At the end of the talk, hopefully we have 20 minutes or so for Q&A. So we'll take the Q&A at that point of time. Please keep putting your questions in the chat and I will answer in due time. Aditya, if you need to interrupt, please feel free to do that also, okay? So back to how we do it, right? There is something which is common between Britain's national cycling team and Swiggy, okay? That's how we do it. The answer is something called power of marginal gains. In 2002, the British cycling team, the cycle sellers, the cycle company actually was very apprehensive in giving them cycles because they were so bad, they thought they will give the cyclists a bad name, okay? That's what it was. So then they got a new coach who actually said, let's just do this new concept called the power of marginal gains, where at every part of our cycling journey, we will improve 1%. Okay. For example, if you get lighter tires, 1% improvement. Maybe the shorts have warmers in them, and that makes the blood flow a little bit better, and hence your stamina increases 1%, and so on and so forth, right? In a very short period of time, they actually won the Olympic gold, and in a period of 6 years, they actually won 5 Tour de France victories also. They took this a little too far, by the way, did some illegal stuff, got into controversy also. That's a separate story for another day. But the concept of marginal gains always remain. So if you look at how your order moves, right? As soon as you start ordering, once you finish placing the order, it splits into 2 pieces. So one side, it goes off to the restaurant where they actually say, hey, I've received the order, and they confirm it. And then they start preparing the food. Food preparation takes some time. And when the food is ready, it's ready for pickup. At the same time, in parallel, it goes on to the operation side of Swiggy, where a driver is assigned. driver goes to the restaurant, we call that first mile. If the food is not ready, there is a time of waiting, and when the food is ready and the person has arrived, they pick up and they travel the last mile, which is the distance to the customer's house, and then they deliver it. That's typically just a depiction of how the orders move. What we want to do today is take some examples across each of these things and tell you what we do as part of this. So I don't want to go too deep into each of the examples. Each of the examples literally can be another hour webinar all by itself. I'll not go into each of these examples very deep. What I'll do is I'll just give a brief overview and then move on to the next example and so on and so forth. So what I'll do there is once at the end, if you have questions, I'll take the questions. Okay. First question is, how do we plan for all of this? How do we prepare for this many weeks before any of the orders are delivered? And which area should have how many drivers, right? First thing we do is, we have a very sophisticated forecasting system, which consists of many parts. The first part is the orders forecast. The orders forecast, what it does is, we've tried like 15 different, can you guys hear me?
Yes, David.
Okay. So we've tried 15 different forecasts, including things like LSTM, deep learning techniques. We just, for the next 2, 3, 4 weeks ahead, we forecast the best possible forecast for at a very, very small hyperlocal level. Okay. Then what we do a bunch of other forecasts. First is attrition modeling. Which of the drivers are going to stay with us by that time and who's going to leave? Second is reliability, which is when we give them a certain shift, will they actually turn up for their shift or not? And when they turn up for the shift, what's the adherence going to be? Will they be there for the full shift duration? Will they go early? Will they stay late? Okay. And we also have different kind of drivers by them. So we have full-time drivers, we have part-time drivers, we have temporary drivers who only come for, let's say, short amount of time. Depending on all of this, we actually forecast how many login hours of the drivers will be available. So we know how much time it takes for each order to be delivered, and you can just find the difference between them, which becomes a driver deficit. Okay, so driver deficit can then be fixed in 2 ways. One is, because we have 3-4 weeks notice, we can actually go and hire in that particular zone. And two, if it's, we just figured out that hey, on a given day, people have suddenly started ordering a lot. We have something called surge bonuses, which is on the given day, we can actually say, hey, if you start logging in, we will give you a little bit more money. Okay. So remember, all of our drivers are contract drivers, so they can decide when to come and then when not to come. Okay. So for encouraging them to come, we have various kinds of incentives to make sure that they come. Okay. So this is a short overview of how we actually do planning of how many drivers should be there in what zone. Okay. So now we'll jump into each part of this operation cycle to see some of the things that we have there. Okay. So first, let's jump into assignment. Specifically, what does assignment mean? It pretty much means which driver should pick up which order. Okay. So let's just take a quick example. So on this table, you have 3 drivers, 1, 2, and 3, and 3 restaurants, A, B, and C. Typical assignment problem is which driver should go to which restaurant to pick up the order so that the total traveled time is minimized. Okay, that's a simple way of articulating it. Remember, we are only talking about just one distance. Let's just take first mile, which is the distance from driver to the restaurant as the thing we're talking about. Okay. So there is one algorithm which we can take as an example, which is called greedy algorithm. Basically, what greedy algorithms do is they say that at every point of the optimization, at every level, we will choose whatever is the best option. So let's say we go top to bottom, right? So for driver 1, the lowest is 3 kilometers. We'll just say Restaurant A is gone. Restaurant driver 1 is allocated. So now we have these 4 cells left. We'll go to driver 2. The best option there is this 2 itself. So driver 2 is gone. Restaurant B is gone. And then for driver 3, you only have one option left, so which is 8 kilometers. So it's adding up to 13 kilometers. You can actually go from bottom to up. In this case, it goes 353, which is 11 kilometers. But if you can actually figure out what the most optimized one is, the optimized one is this one, which is a total of 10 kilometers. So imagine doing that with thousands of orders in every zone, right? So what that requires us to do is create computations of, for every order and every driver, each of the combination you try to figure out what's the effort it's going to take, and then do a full optimization using linear programming. So you may not know this, but as soon as you place your order, we wait a few seconds, and once we wait a few seconds, this major optimization algorithm runs to actually figure out which driver is going to pick up which order. And it's not very simple because the example I showed was just first mile. So you can actually look at many things here. For example, first you have first mile, then you have the wait time at the restaurant. These are the cost elements. Then you have the speed element, which is if the assignment algorithm, the optimization waits for 5 minutes, I have enough orders to do a very good optimization. But then customers may feel that that's too much time we spent on the optimizations. Can we do 1 minute, 2 minutes? Okay, so that's something we can play with. Okay, people who are familiar or who have delivered orders to a certain location in the past can actually deliver in a much better way. So driver familiarity is something which increases speed. Then we also take care of drivers also. So for example, you don't want a driver not to be getting orders. So how can we make sure that people get orders? How can we make sure that idle time of drivers is reduced? Okay, so all of these things we do, and then we do the optimization. That's what makes the whole assignment thing really tough. Okay. So let's take another example of something we do in assignment. Okay, how do we ensure that there are enough drivers available in high demand areas? Okay, this again, 2 sets of algorithms we do. First one is, for example, figure out what are the areas like buildings or sets of buildings where we feel there are demand pockets. Okay, this is think of it as trying to do a location-based clustering to figure out areas. Okay, then a second algorithm does a forecast and says for the next few minutes how many orders are going to come, and then we get this map that every driver can see, which actually shows like a hotspot, what are the high demand areas nearby. And in this case, the driver, because they're able to see where they are and where the hotspots are, they can actually drive there. The next version of this tool actually has a path that is shown, a recommended path, so that they can get the next order fastest. So that's something we do to ensure that drivers are able to get to places where the demand is very high. This, if you see, will reduce first mile distance, will also reduce time taken for an order to be delivered because the driver is right next to the restaurant. Okay. Another one on assignment is something that's a little bit controversial. Okay, can you reduce cost by having a single driver carry multiple orders? Okay, we call this batching at Swiggy. So it's very simple. So you have one driver goes to restaurant 1, delivers to customer 1. Second driver goes to restaurant 2, delivers to customer 2. If let's say restaurant 1 and 2 are very close by, maybe even the same restaurant, and customer 1 or 2 are very close by, maybe the same apartment complex itself, then you can theoretically have the person pick up from both the restaurants and deliver to both the houses. Okay, that's the concept of batching. But the problem here is actually not the batching itself, because if your order is delayed, this is a perishable inventory, right? If your food is cold, obviously the quality is not as good as food being hot. And we made a commitment to people saying we will deliver your food in X amount of time. We take that commitment seriously, so we don't want to break it also. And people are generally upset if their order is delayed, right? We discussed the hangry situation earlier. So what we want to do is to figure out a batching algorithm which doesn't upset the customers too much, which is I don't break my promise, I don't delay too much, I need to ensure that food is in good quality. You can't put a biryani and an ice cream together because that will mess it up. Maybe it's a valuable order, high order value. If it's a valuable high order value, we don't batch it. Ice creams and biryanis, we don't batch. So a bunch of constraints we put. The problem here is not about finding the right batches, but more about finding the customer symbols which make us actually be able to batch it without creating much of a problem for customers. So that's a little bit about batching. The next one is so if you look at this whole cycle, right? What's the total time that a customer takes? It's the time for confirmation plus time for food preparation, or assignment time plus first mile time plus waiting time, the maximum of that. So this is if you call this A and if you call this B, the time is the maximum of A or B plus the last mile. Okay, so that's how it's set. So the idea is, how do we is there a way we can make it, instead of an and, can we make it into an or? Okay, so this is an experiment we're trying nowadays on if you've been to the Bangalore airport and picked up an Uber, so they use the same thing, which is so you order your Uber cab and you stand in a line. The Uber cabs just keep coming. You just get into the cab and keep going. Okay. So just converting into mathematics, right? If you know the distribution of the orders that's going to come, okay, and how much each of those orders is going to take to prepare, then you can actually theoretically have a distribution of the arrival of drivers to that same residence. These are high volume restaurants we're talking about, which have very predictable order distributions. So you can theoretically have a driver just reach and pick up whatever order that's there. Okay, as opposed to assigning a order beforehand. Any order that's there, we can take it and move on. Theoretically, that could lead to food not waiting at all, which is the best case for all of the customers, because you get your food hot and fresh. Theoretically, driver wait time also almost goes to zero, and any delays that we have because of either food waiting or driver waiting both go away. Okay, that's again good for customer. So this is something we're trying out. We call it airport model. Technically, it's not an airport model, but can we send a driver to a restaurant with high volume and they can pick up whatever order they have? Okay, so that's all we have on the first part, which is assignment. The rest of them don't have that many examples. I'll just take a pause here. Aditya, do we have any questions that you want me to take right now, or can we move on?
Yeah, so few questions have come up from the previous slides.
Okay.
So how are you handling forecasting now that is given the black swan event of pandemic?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Very good question. If any of you are in the data science analytics field, you probably know that after a black swan event, you cannot do forecasting. So all our forecasting models have gone for a toss. Especially things like even Google's model went for a toss. If you're trying to figure out how long it's going to take for driver to get from A to B, right? Pre-COVID, you had a lot of traffic. Post-COVID, there's literally no traffic, and even Google had to relearn their models. As of now, we've had 4 months of COVID, and within the first 4 to 6 weeks, some of the frequently used predictions, we were able to adjust them. Restaurants have had both issues, which is high stress because there are less number of restaurants, so a lot of orders are coming to the restaurants that are open. At the same time, there are restaurants which are open who are not getting enough orders. So the preparation time prediction was it took some time to get used to, but as of now, with 4 months of information, we've been able to fix it. Okay. There's a question on what is detraction index in batching. Basically, detraction index is is a number we have. Like, for example, there are two situations: normal situation and let's say test situation. We look at how many people. So maybe I should explain NPS first. Net Promoter Score. We ask people, hey, would you be willing to recommend Swiggy? So it's a 10-point answer. So anything 9 and 10 is called a promoter. Anything 1 to 6, they are called detractors. 7 and 8 are neutrals. Okay. So now, detraction, number of detractors divided by number of people is what we call as detraction score. Okay. So now let's say there is a situation and there is another test situation. So if you can see the comparison of the detraction index in the test situation divided by detraction index in the normal situation, detraction score in the normal situation, that's what we call as index. Okay. For example, let's say people who are getting badged are 1.1 times more unhappy than people who are not getting badged. This is an example. That gives us a sign that, hey, people are not happy. Okay. But if the number is like 1.01, which is just say 1% delta, then we're like, okay, it's not that bad, we can do it. That's what detraction index is. Okay. Anything else, Aditya?
Yeah, one last question. So Praneeth is asking, how do you ensure that D is surely going to pick up the order when you create a D order pair?
Yeah, I'm coming to that in my next slide. Okay. The answer is we do it through governance. Okay. Okay. So I'll move on from here. Okay. So now let's look at what we are doing on the first mile itself. So key question is, how can the time and distance of the first mile be reduced? First thing, I'm sure all of you have faced it, is you make your order, your driver is assigned, but the person doesn't move, okay, or is moving extremely slowly, okay. Sometimes I've seen people stay at their home and be like, yeah, I'm brushing my teeth, I'll go off later on, okay, that kind of thing. We've created something called driver nudges, where there is a really, really annoying sound that comes. And if you can read, it's very small font, let me read it. It says, please start moving, order is getting delayed, please start moving. Okay. So you get this driver nudges happening whenever they don't move. Okay. So next we have things like restaurant geofencing, which is some people actually mark that they have arrived before they have arrived. Okay. What that does is it starts giving them money for waiting time when they've actually not reached the restaurant. Okay, so that kind of fraud also happens. So we have restaurant geofencing, where people are allowed to mark as reached only after they've reached. Okay, we are trying that back with customers also, which is they can actually say delivered only when it's delivered. Okay, then we have a lot of governance just to make sure that people are following things. For example, issues that might happen is person has accepted the order but then refuses to go. Okay. They've accepted the order and maybe they claim that, hey, I had an issue with my bike. Okay. They've picked up the food, but they've delivered it somewhere else. They've picked up the wrong kind of food. So all of these are issues that we face. And so through different kinds of governance that we set around it, we reduce any kind of egregious behavior of the drivers. Okay. So those are things that we're doing on the first mile. Now let's look at wait time. So basically, we feel that any wait time that you have is kind of it's wasted money, because Swiggy is paying the driver. Driver doesn't want to wait because they get more money for traveling actually, and customers are paying for this waiting time, but then it doesn't benefit the customer in any way. Okay. So key thing we look for in wait time is we just want to eliminate all of it. Okay. So one of the things that we are using is learned from it's an old technique, like 70 years old technique called just in time. Basically, where you agree with the supply chain on exactly what your production schedule is, and you tie up the raw material delivery to suit the production schedule. Okay. works really well in supply chain, especially in manufacturing. In our world, we are trying to mimic that. Okay, the reason we can't exactly mimic it is because of the volatility of the business. Okay, so again, if you look at this same image I've been showing, right? Confirmation, we don't know how long a restaurant takes to confirm. They just take whatever time they want. Preparation time is also not easily predictable. Assignment time is something that is fairly controllable by Swiggy, and first mile is fairly predictable. I'd say if you're aware of how much traffic is there at that time, you can actually predict it. So the top part is little fuzzy, difficult to predict. Bottom part is fairly well in our control. So now, as we said, let's say this is A and B. You actually take the maximum of A or B, whichever is the maximum. So if you want waiting to be 0, you need to have confirmation plus food preparation time exactly the same as assignment plus first mile time. So if you want to make wait time 0, you need to delay the assignment or do the assignment in such a way that the confirmation time plus food preparation time, which is the time taken for the restaurant to prepare the food, minus the time taken for the driver to reach the restaurant, that is how much you exactly delay the assignment, and then you can actually have just in time. Okay, so then our wait time then theoretically can go very, very low. We actually don't want the wait time to be 0, because when you have an average wait time as 0, then there are situations when food is waiting as well. So we don't want the food to wait, because food degrades very fast. So we want to ensure that customer experience is kept up. So we add a few minutes of buffer when we use this. But technically, we do accurate prediction of confirmation, prediction of food preparation, prediction of first mile, and then use that to figure out how much assignment we can delay, so that the pickup is just in time. Okay, so that's how we are actually reducing wait time. Now let's talk about some things we are doing on the last mile. I'm sure all of us have faced this thing saying, "Madam, kidhar aana, madam." Okay, especially if you've had to explain it multiple times, and it's a known problem for us. People have complained to us about it. Every time they delay 15 minutes because they reach somewhere else, is what this particular customer is saying. And so we went and analyzed it. So what we saw is, in many cases, the location of where the driver was supposed to go is actually different from the location where it was actually delivered. Okay, so imagine somebody saying, "Hey, my house is near the cooperative bank." Okay, so the person has reached the cooperative bank and calling saying, "Madam, kidhar ho aap?" Okay, but the madam then says that, "Hey, it's not the Bangalore cooperative bank; it's actually Karnataka cooperative bank." Okay, so now the driver has to go all the way around and then deliver it here. So we actually have data of where the pin was and where the actual order was delivered. Okay, so the question is, can we use some of this information to actually correct addresses? So we are using something called density-based spatial clustering of applications with noise. Okay, in short, it's called dbScan, where it takes a bunch of points and creates a few kinds of them. So one is core point, which is anything that is within a certain radius, and anything which is connected to certain other minimum number of core points is called a core point. Okay, so all the red ones here are called core points. If it is within a certain radius of a core point, but it doesn't have the minimum points, it's called a border point. So these yellow ones are the border points, and if none of these is satisfied, it's called the noise point. Okay, so this particular algorithm is able to separate the noise and have a decent enough understanding of what the actual address points are. And then what we can do is we can actually take a centroid of all of these core points by eliminating the noise, and then we have a fairly good representation of where your house is already there. Okay, then what happens is, once that is done, the driver can actually put a tick mark saying, "I verified this address and it is at this location." and then on the driver screen you get a tick mark which says here is the here is the actual address and this is verified, right? So that's how we are correcting the addresses of customers. And what this has done is many times the last mile for customers has reduced by up to 10 minutes, and we've had an average 5% reduction in the delay that we have. Okay, and it also reduces the need for drivers to call customers again and again and again, which is another big pain that we see. So this is something that we've done, which is helping to reduce the time taken to deliver. Okay, so now I have something, maybe a couple of slides on how we're actually dealing with COVID situation. Okay, I'll just give you 5 examples of what we've done. 4 of them on this slide. First is, I'm sure you all know this, which is very, very high focus on kitchen safety. So daily temperature checks, mandatory masks, mandatory sanitization. There's sanitizer and soap kept at a location. So when your driver is going to pick up the order, they both sanitize and wash their hands before they pick up the order. Okay. Then we have social distancing markers at restaurants so that people are not crowding. But in case, can we algorithmically reduce crowding, right? So remember we talked about that just in time, where we are able to prepare, we're able to understand the food preparation time and the time it takes for the driver to reach, right? That algorithm we were actually able to tweak to say with a different objective, can you minimize crowding at the restaurant? Okay. So if you look at this graph, it shows that the red line is a lot more to the left, and at the smaller numbers, it is much higher than the blue line. So basically it means that using that same algorithm and repurposing it to reduce crowding at restaurants, we are actually able to get a reduction in the number of people who are simultaneously there at the restaurant. Okay, so that's why if you see nowadays, you get a message on your tracking screen which says, hey, we have delayed the assignment of your driver because we want to stop crowding at the restaurant. Okay, so that's this algorithm at work. You also, a lot of customers have used the contactless delivery option as well, where you don't have to interact with the driver. They just leave it outside your door, take a photograph, and go on from there. So we are also working to enforce mask compliance also. So whenever the driver logs in and at random times of the day, we ask them to take a selfie, and we have a deep learning model which tests whether which basically confirms whether the person is wearing a mask or not, and the person is mandated to wear the mask, otherwise they can't continue to work. So that's another thing we are doing. Good news on that side is we've delivered 3 crore orders during the lockdown, and thank God we've not had even one case of any kind of COVID transmission because of Swiggy. So really thankful, and this is a testament to the drivers who work very hard and the restaurants who also kept up a lot of hygiene. So that's some good news from our side. Just to summarize what we've discussed today, in 500 cities, we are today India's largest food delivery platform. Despite all the issues that we have the industry best delivery time of 32 minutes. We've optimized delivery to 6 crore unique addresses, and the best of all is 99% of orders are delivered within 60 minutes. And I know that some of us get very angry when our order is delayed, but please note that most of the time it works pretty well despite all the constraints that we have. Okay, so what I've shown today is just little bit. You can actually go to bytes.swiggy.com. There are a lot of articles there which can help you understand a lot more in detail to specific algorithms that we are working on. Anyone with more curiosity can address that. Okay. Thank you so much. I will take questions at this point of time. Aditya, over to you.
Yeah, the question from Arvind. Some drivers use a bicycle. Can the customer be notified when this happens?
Uh, Theoretically, we can do it. I don't know what the benefit to the customer is. I don't do. Does he think that it makes them very slow? Actually, what we've seen is Aditya himself did an analysis. Cycle drivers are not much slower than bike drivers, by the way. Okay. The reason is they're able to get through the traffic very fast. The speed is actually very good. So for all practical purposes, there is no difference in speed between a cycle driver and a bike driver. The only thing we keep in mind during assignment is that we don't send them very, very far away places. Okay. So that's something we do anyway. Aditya?
Yeah. Question from Palash. How do you deal with forecasting orders for regions with different growth rates, growing markets versus saturated markets?
Yeah, good question. So that's why we literally have thousands of predictive models. Okay, so every model is for one city at a time, multiplied by number of customer segments. So for our customers, we have 7 kinds of customer segments. Plus, in those customer segments also, we have new user, repeat user, dormant user, things like that. So the multiple of all of these cities into customer segments into status, right? That's where we are doing the predictions. So at that level, because there is a separate customized model for every city, every segment, so we are able to identify that a city is growing faster than the other cities, and go on from there. Okay. For example, if there's a Ganesh Chaturthi, for example, it's a lot more. It's a big festival in Maharashtra, for example. The impact of that specific festival on cities in Maharashtra is different compared to other parts of India. So we are able to estimate that and prepare accordingly.
Yeah. Question from Nikhil. Would you prefer queuing of orders in case of high stress or ignore the order completely?
Okay, I will ask you the question. Okay, would you be willing to wait 2 to 3 hours for your order, or for Swiggy to say, "I'm very sorry, we are under stress, we are not able to deliver"? Okay. The answer we have at this point of time is it's probably better off to say, "I'm sorry, we can't take your order," than to take it and mess it up. Okay, so again, we put customer first, saying unless we are able to assure good customer experience, we will not do it. Okay, so we do have correction mechanisms, by the way. So we have something called gradual, graceful degradation. So, for example, on a typical day, you will see anything from 4 to 8 kilometers as the radius of the restaurants you can see. Okay, as the stress increases, what we try to do is slowly reduce the radius. So let's say Sunday night when it's raining, for example, sometimes you may have noticed that there are fewer restaurants visible to you than other times. Okay, that's a way of saying, hey, can I do give some kind of option to customers while not declining the order per se. So we try to decline the order. We try to give them options from closer by so that more customers are happy with the delivery. So we've taken the option of saying no to orders if we can't deliver them on time.
A question from Nilesh. Does Swiggy drivers have insurance?
Oh yeah, they have insurance for all kinds of things, injuries, accidents. We also gave them COVID insurance if they or any of their family members are sick. We gave them a big compensation as well.
Question from Aparna. Do you use any customization of ETA models based on route adherence by driver partners, or any way of ensuring drivers follow predicted routes?
2 parts of the question. Second is actually difficult. Adherence to our route is we are unable to do that at this time. But can we learn from the route and update our ETA models? Yes. So what we do is we have models from Google route models. We have OpenStreetMaps. They also give a direction. And then we have the route that the driver actually takes. Okay. The bike maps from Google are very costly. So we still use four-wheeler maps actually. And OpenStreets is not that mature at this point of time. So we use both Google and OpenStreet. And the third signal we use is actually the path that the driver took. So any of these, if one is more optimal than the other, then we can actually use that to calculate the route as opposed to just going by whatever the current version is suggesting. So we do use that option.
Question from Swati. Most of the drivers most of the time being not tech savvy, what mechanism do you use to frequently update on the technical changes on the app that would affect them?
The drivers are supposed to frequently undergo training. Okay. And we've done the training in a very intuitive way. Basically, they just receive a link, they can click it and just watch a video. So the video shows them all the different kind of things that the driver could be doing. And at the same time, we have people who can talk to the drivers and explain to them how to do certain things. So that's also something that we do.
Question from Noor. The option to tip the drivers comes prior to finalizing order. The option will be more beneficial if it is given post-delivery along with feedback. The customer may be willing to tip more if he or she is satisfied with the delivery process. Moreover, it will be motivating for the executive to earn this incentive.
Correct. Very good idea. So we've received that input from others as well. As we speak, we are building our product out. So you should see it happening soon. By the way, if you tip somebody and you want to withdraw it, that option is available.
Question from Arvind. Do you assist key restaurants in forecasting the demand, given that data science framework at your end is more high-end than any average restaurant?
At the restaurant level, it's not easy for us. We've tried it in a few places. For our own brands and for brands which are operating from cloud kitchens, because all of their orders are coming from Swiggy, we are able to fairly easily do it. But for a typical restaurant, there are two issues. One is Swiggy is not all of their business. It could be maybe 30-40% of their business. There are other online players and there are dine-in as well. So we don't know exactly what their total orders are. So it's difficult to predict it. And if you just predict Swiggy orders, it's not very useful to them. They'd rather have the whole thing. Okay. And second thing is many of the top restaurants will have people who've done it for decades, for example. And because they've done it for decades, they have a good idea of how business is running. Okay. Andaze se, ye itna kg biryani bana do. Okay. So they're probably well versed in demand planning using rough judgment based on many decades of experience. So they are not they're not tech savvy enough to ask us for it. Okay.
How does Swiggy find restaurants?
There are actually many ways that Swiggy finds restaurant. One is customers search for a restaurant and it's not available. That's one. Second is restaurant reach out to us and say, hey, we want to come onto our system. Third is people ping us saying, hey, this restaurant is on your competitor, but it's not on Swiggy. Can you please onboard? Okay. So these are just some examples of how we onboard.
A question from Aman. Wouldn't it be a good idea if there will be something like quick delivery options similar to Amazon Prime?
I'll ask the question back to you. Would you be willing to pay for it, by the way? If there are sufficient people who might be willing to pay for it, we might actually give that option. Okay.
How do you use analytics to minimize errors such as wrong pickups, driver accidents, food spillage, wastage, etc.
Can you repeat, Aditya? How to use analytics to?
Minimize errors such as wrong pickups, driver accidents, food spillage, wastage, etc.
Got it. Got it. See, good question again. So that's where the 1% I mentioned in the early in the presentation comes over and over again. Okay, restaurant by restaurant, dish by dish, we know exactly what is causing certain issues. For example, if a restaurant, a dish is considered too spicy by customers, right, and that's causing a lot of issues. So we are actually able to identify that dish as spicy and we'll put 2 chilies against it. Okay. Again, there are certain kinds of packaging from certain kinds of restaurant where the spillage is higher. Okay. Again, we can go back to the restaurant and say, hey, your spillage seems to be much higher compared to the rest of the market. Please take corrective action. Then you have certain drivers who don't behave in the proper way. Okay, they do fraud and things like that. Any outliers are again detected and given a warning, or there was governance put around those things. Okay, so again, this is the 1% we do over and over again. Different problems. Get that 1% out every time.
Question from Sriram. How many drivers are typically required for an evening peak around 8 p.m. in a city like Bangalore?
I do not know, and if I tell you, you'll probably able to back calculate orders which our investors may not like. Okay, it's quite a lot, I would say. Okay, Bangalore is very friendly for ordering in. Lots of huge demand comes from it. It is literally by far the largest city we have for Swiggy.
Question from Praneeth. Do you take preference if driver is full-time versus part-time, or you analyze the behavior and segment them?
It's actually it's there's no preference per se, but actually there's a benefit in having this, right? Back to the peakiness of the demand. Okay, there is case for certain full-time people who are doing 5 days a week, 6 days a week. Okay, there is also a case for people who will only come on Sunday night. Okay, it's a win-win for both parties, because let's say I'm a student or I work at Infosys and I just want to make some side business on Sunday nights, right? I can join as a temp D and do that particular job, only come for that 1 hour, 2 hour peak, make some money, go back. Okay, that's good for us, good for the people who are working, and good for the full-time people also, because they're anyway working the whole 5 weeks, 5 days or 6 days a week. Okay, so I don't think there's a trade-off there. They're all equally important for us.
How is density-based clustering communicated to the driver?
They don't see that. All they sees a different address. Okay, they see a different pin for the address and they just go to the new address. So the example I showed, instead of going to Bangalore's cooperative bank, they directly go to Karnataka cooperative bank and then they deliver at that place.
Is there any personalization done using customer demographic or other attributes?
Not customer demographics. So we personalize based on what you've eaten. Okay, with a simple theory that you will eat more of what you've already eaten. So that's pretty much what we do. So we have in our ranking algorithms, we have 2 kinds of things which are meeting. One is just popularity. What does everybody like? What everybody likes comes up, and what everybody doesn't like goes down. So what likes is a separate discussion. And then we have the personalized one. What does, let's say, Aditya like? Okay, and it is like at this location at this time of the day. Okay, that's what we do. Based on what you ordered or close to ordering, or based on similarity to what we've ordered, that's how we personalized. Personalization based on demographics is I would say not advised personal, because of PII reasons. We want to keep customer data secure, things like that. But anyway, we know what you've eaten. So all we need to tell you is what you're going to eat, and what you've eaten is really a good measure of what you're going to eat. So that's really good enough for us.
When determining new cities to enter, what are the metrics and analytics that you use, as there isn't any prior data available by Conver?
Um, uh, See, the thing is, obviously it's tough. Um, the only Since we have zero orders, all we can do is look at macroeconomic factors, things like population, number of affluent people, number of restaurants, things like that, right? Um, and then find similar cities and then track the behavior of this city to that similar cities. And based on lookalikes, we can figure out what's the expected performance of a given city.
Okay. If you lose location from a driver's app, how do you update ETA and other metrics?
We cannot. Okay. So if you see the tracking screen on the app, sometimes you say the driver's location may not be up to date. So we always take the latest known location and only show the latest known location. If the GPS is off or network is bad, you will not see that person moving. Okay, and you'll get a warning saying, "Hey, location may not be accurate," and you can see it on the screen also.
Is it feasible to make some distant restaurants within city available for delivery with some extra delivery charges?
It should already be live. Okay, I don't know which city you're from. So we are calling it search plus long distance. So if your favorite restaurant is not available on the platform, and you search for it, okay, you will get certain results which are from faraway restaurants, along with time it's going to take and an extra charge. It should be already live, if I'm not mistaken, because I've done a few of those. The only problem there is what we are seeing is if you're ordering from a faraway restaurant, you need to know that, let's say 10-15 kilometers, it might take an hour plus to reach home. So you might have to reheat the food, or if it's something crisp or something, it may not be that crisp when it comes home, right? Just be careful about that. But as of now, you can order. If that option is not available at all, we also have the Swiggy Genie option. The Swiggy Genie option can go to anything, any store, any restaurant, anywhere in the city. Place an order on your behalf, pick up that order and deliver to your house. So that is also an option that is available.
Okay. Question from Karthik. People will come back to Swiggy only if they like the food. So how much does Swiggy engage with its restaurant partners to help them improve their quality and scale up or provide feedback?
We give them feedback on, like I said about the spicy food, oily food. We give them feedback on that. Any complaints they have of too salty, too less salt, bland food, we give them a lot of that feedback. But specifically, we don't mess around with their what do you call recipe and things like that. Okay, because that's their USP and it's for them to figure that out. But any intelligence we have on spicy, salt, oily, not hot enough, package spilling, all of that, we give them feedback and they take it. Okay. We also work very closely with them on helping them grow also, but that's a discussion for a different day.
Is there any way you are categorizing high value versus low value customers?
High value versus low value customers. Not really. We do have a customer segmentation, which is a bunch of various attributes. Okay, like how much you like discounts, how much money you've spent on the platform, what kind of food you like to order, how you go through the app. Are you a convenience seeker? Like you go through the app really fast, or you are doing one step at a time. You try out a few coupons, or do you make big orders? So all of these things, we have behavioral segment, but not just a unidimensional segmentation. I don't think works anyway. So we do have segments, but they're a lot more richer because we use multiple dimensions for it.
Any steps taken by Swiggy to reduce plastic use?
Reduce plastic use, not per se. That's something which is very dear to myself and a bunch of the leadership team members. See, the problem right now is, if let's say a restaurant says, hey, I will charge you 20 rupees more for paper packaging or environmentally friendly packaging, okay, not too many customers are willing to pay that extra amount, okay. And from a restaurant perspective, it's all or nothing, because in the peak it's so crazy. I'm sure you got the wrong company tape on your this one, okay. So whose company, what tape they're putting, what plastic they're putting, they cannot differentiate order by order on packaging, okay. So it has to be the whole restaurant going environmentally friendly or not. And because consumers are not willing to pay for environmentally friendly options, the restaurants are unable to make the jump, okay. So what we are doing from Swiggy side is trying to see if we can do bulk deal with manufacturers or invest in innovation, so that we can either reduce the cost, we can then reduce the cost to restaurants, so that the cost of packaging for environmentally friendly options is similar to the cost of packaging. So that's what we are doing. But technically, what bowls they use is the restaurant's choice, right? We can't do much there.
Is there any algorithm for pricing of food specific to high demand restaurants versus delivery constraints versus weather conditions?
That's one core attribute of Swiggy. We will not change the price of the food, okay. And we have made so much effort to even make sure that there is price parity also. We made a lot of effort on that. We are not going to change the price of the food at this point of time, okay. What we might charge is an extra delivery fee because it's raining, extra delivery fee because it's far away, things like that. You might have a surge because of too many people coming in, but we'll never change the price of food dynamically.
Is the capacity on the delivery bag a constraint around batching and other constraints of assignment?
Not really. The bag is actually very well designed. I have one in my office, and it's got different pockets. It's got holes. You can even take coffee cups in there. It doesn't spill. Different pockets for hot and cold stuff. It's fairly well done. There is a legal constraint of 15 kgs. So you cannot take anything more than 15 kgs on a bike legally. Okay. So that's the limit. We don't hit that limit with food at all. We are hitting that limit when we do things like grocery deliveries. Okay, the 15 kg limit. In which case we don't batch them.